thank you all for coming. Rose tells me we have a good mix of people in the room today. The Education Collaborative, this is the third year for the Education Collaborative, for those of you who are here for the first time. Started from 12 institutions, about 25 participants. And this year, in the third year, the number has doubled in terms of the people participating. And it's really good to see all the efforts, all the work being done to strengthen the collaboration between all our different institutions and organizations. And for those of you who are visiting Ghana, you might find this happens a lot in a lot of different events, but can we all give ourselves a round of applause? And oftentimes, the round of applause is not for any particular reason. It's just tradition. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Minister for Education, Tertiary, Professor Yaka. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to acknowledge our colleagues from the Ghana Education Service, Mrs. Agnes Mensa. Thank you for coming. And all of you, thank you all for coming, and we'll kick it underway. I'd like to invite Patrick to come join me up here and share a few words about the future of Africa, where Africa is headed, and the role that we all have to play. Can we welcome Patrick?
Good morning. Professor Yanka, thank you so much for joining us, and colleagues from universities across the continent. It's great to have you here. This year, this is the third year we're running the Education Collaborative, and this year we have 20 universities represented here. So we're very excited about that, to see that the Education Collaborative is growing. I wanted to just share a few words this morning about why we're doing this and where we see the challenges confronting us in Africa and what the opportunities are. And I'm going to actually borrow from a talk that I did in New York last year, talking about the future of Africa. And in that talk, I explained that we have to look at the big trends when we think about the future. So at Ashesi, we are going through a strategic planning process this year. And for this strategic plan, we challenge ourselves to think about what is the world going to look like 50 years from now? And how do we position Ashesi and do things in the next 5 to 10 years that will make us relevant in that world 50 years from now and helpful in that world 50 years from now. Now, when you think about a 50-year time horizon, who really knows even what the world is going to look like 5 years from now, let alone 50 years from now, right? There's just so much happening at such a quick pace. But when you look at a 50-year horizon, it compels you to look at big trends, things that are big waves that you know will happen. So population growth, demographics is one of them. The rise of the fourth industrial revolution is another one. And the third one is climate change. This is a major phenomenon occurring in the world. And if it is not mitigated in some way, it's going to have profound impacts 50 years from now. So let's look at just demographics for now. So this chart is a chart of global population. The yellow chart, the yellow graph, the one at the top, is Asia. The red line that is still going through a sort of rising like that, 1.2 billion, that's Africa. And then we have Europe, yellow, North America, and Oceania. So Africa is 1.2 billion people today. And the UN estimates by 2050 it will be 2.5 billion people. So in 30 years, this continent is going to more than double its population. And it's going to be pretty much evenly distributed across the continent. There are a few outliers. I mean, Rwanda is not growing at the same clip as the rest of us, and Niger is growing at a faster clip than the rest of us, for example. But overall, this growth is going to be pretty proportional around the continent. By the turn of the century, Africa would just about have caught up with Asia, 4 billion people. So this is a very big event that is occurring. Now, the event in Africa, 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion, we've seen that chart before. We've seen that movie before. It's that yellow bar, that yellow graph in Asia, right? 1960 going up to 2010. We've seen it. And this graph for Asia represented opportunity. And it can represent opportunity in Africa as well. But success will require certain things, which I'll talk about in a minute. This chart also represents potential severe difficulties, especially because we have other effects happening. So the fourth industrial revolution, AI, robotics, means that potentially what we saw in Asia, where jobs were moving from, high-income economies to Asia, may not happen to the same extent moving from Asia to Africa. In other words, those jobs might not be taken by robots and not necessarily will be for lower wage market. Climate change means that pressure on agriculture is going to be more severe, for example. But this chart represents pressure, right? If you went to the United States, which is the wealthiest economy on earth today, and said your population is going to double in the next 30 years, they would consider something of a crisis. Pressure on infrastructure, the pressure on healthcare systems, the pressure on agriculture, everything gets stressed. Education. So on the one hand, there's great potential, but on the other hand, there's also a lot of pressure. And we need to take certain actions in order to get a positive outcome. Now, I would say that a positive outcome depends principally on two things: a productive workforce and effective leadership, right? The kind of leadership that creates an environment for citizens to be productive is going to be critical. And a productive workforce that can add value to natural resources is also going to be critical. Now, both of these things, the workforce and leadership, are the business of education. That's our job. The educational system prepares citizens, adds value to citizens so they can be more productive. And it also, incidentally and crucially, educates people who will rise to be leaders across society. And so the work that we do will quite literally make the difference between a great outcome in Africa or major dislocations. So what is it going to take to actually get education right? And I'm going to focus on higher education because that's the sector that we're working in. The first thing I posit is that we need exemplars. We need exemplars in education across the continent. Northern Africa, West, Central, Eastern, Southern Africa needs bright spots that others can gravitate towards, that others can follow. We need a very strong network of high-quality institutions that are not compromising on values, ethics, character formation, and academic excellence. We need collaboration among all our institutions around pedagogy and innovation. And in order to get us all aligned in the right way, we need to really take a look at whether the rankings that we're currently using are serving us well, or if we need better rankings. I would argue that we need better rankings. The current ranking system really is measuring two things. How much are the faculty publishing in academic journals, right? And things that they're publishing, how much are they cited by other academics, okay? Now, yesterday we had an intense conversation about this issue when the leaders of the universities met yesterday. And there were views ranging from, if these publications are not positively impacting our economies, then they're irrelevant to us, to, well, we need to play the global ranking system, and what's wrong with the current ranking system. So the thing that we need to really care about is outcomes and the impact of the work that we do, right? So a few years ago, I was at a conference in Rwanda, and the Minister of Health in Rwanda put up a slide that showed a paper in an academic journal that described a scientist, I think it was a German scientist, who had seen the antigen for Ebola in Liberia in 1980. Okay? So in 1980, somebody was doing research, checking people's blood, and saw this thing and published it in a paper that other academics read, but nobody else did. And she was presenting this at a time when the world had experienced a major public health scare, when the Ebola crisis erupted in Liberia, Sierra Leone. And the point she was making is, we put important information in documents that are then hidden behind paywalls that only the most privileged institutions in the world subscribe to and read. And those are the journals that all our academics also want to publish in. Let's go hide our information from ourselves, from our public officials, from our industry. If that's in fact what we're doing and patting ourselves on the back about, then we're not being as relevant as we need to be in Africa. But we have real issues to confront. We have bigger issues than much of the world. And so we really need to look at outcomes and impact. Before I started Ashesi, one of the things that I did was I came to Ghana and I spoke with lots of friends and family about issues in the country. I'll give you one example of a conversation I had. You ask, why are all the roads so bad? I asked someone who's an engineer here, why are the roads all failing? There's these same bloody potholes that show up all the time. They look the same, they occur the same frequency, and what is it about engineering in Ghana that causes this phenomenon to continue? Aren't you guys studying it? Aren't you guys trying to prevent it from happening? It's a systemic problem. And he said, oh, we know why it's happening. So first of all, the roads, the budgets for the roads are not big enough to actually build a high quality road. You need to have a sub-base, then you have to have a concrete level base, and then you put the asphalt. The budgets are made so that the concrete layer, that forget about it, you don't even do that. The sub-base is laterite, you start at this depth and you compact it down. You have a certain compaction ratio, and then it's very hard, and then you put the asphalt on it. Here's what happens. When you go for the bid, some government official says, you got to give me a kickback. So that's part of the money of the insufficient budget you're going to give to someone. And then for the compaction ratio, The engineer who's going to come drill and see the thing come out and say whether this is hard enough or not, says, you have to give me a kickback. And so, otherwise I'll write a bad report. And the only way to be able to give him that money is instead of starting with this amount of blacklight and compacting into here, you start over here and compact into here. So the base is not very strong. Okay. So basically, it's poor planning, poor management, and a lot of corruption. But we engineers, we know what we're doing. This is answer. Okay. Now, this answer is what I was getting for just about any problem. You end up with the answer that says the people in charge at the highest levels are accepting the status quo, or they're corrupt, they're doing the wrong thing. They know the road is going to fail. They mix more kerosene in the bitumen than they need to, because that's the only way to do the road with all these kickbacks happening. And they know exactly when it's going to fail. It's going to fail after the first 2 rains. So you plan to finish a road in the dry season, right? So that, you know, the warranty period of 6 months will have passed before the rains start. And as soon as the warranty is passed and you've been paid, you see these potholes. These are guys who are educated, okay? And they're just okay with this. So, ethics is a really important thing. And the fact that at the time, 5% of college-age individuals in this country went to college. Now I think it's like 12%. So, by definition, they're the leaders. Fast forward 20 years. And if they're all behaving this way, then you have a problem. So, for us, a student body that has a deep ethical philosophy that commits individually and corporately to not cheat and to hold each other accountable is one of the things that we measure. In 2006, this woman became president of student government at Ashesi. It was the first time a woman had held the position of head of student government in Ghana's history. And within 3-5 years after that, there are 5 other universities where this has happened. So for us, making sure that we're providing equal opportunities to everyone, encouraging everyone to be the best selves, teaching the men to vote for people based on their capabilities, not an agenda, teaching the women to vote for people based on capabilities and not gender is important. And by the way, the first time a woman ran for student government and lost, it was partly because the women on campus overwhelmingly voted against her. Okay, when we looked at the data, right? It was very interesting. And, this is, and based on that election result, we actually started a leadership seminar series and added it to Ashesi's curriculum to help turn this phenomenon around. We have a set of learning goals for our institution. The faculty and the executives got together and asked ourselves a question. What are the attributes that we want all our graduates to have, regardless of their major, after they graduated? And here's the things that we came up with. Technological competence, critical reasoning, quantitative reasoning, ethics, civic engagement, curiosity and skill, innovation and action orientation, teamwork and leadership, and powerful communication skills. And so, how do we measure this? Well, the way we measure it is we go to corporate Ghana and we ask them to rank our students on a scale from 0 to 100 on these attributes when they hire interns. And we do this every year, right? Abigail, every year we do this. Every year. And it's a way for us to sort of be accountable, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. Some other performance indicators that we have what is a 4-year graduation rate? What is a graduation rate 5 years and over? What is a career placement rate? This is about outcomes. So our 4-year graduation rate is 78%. 86% will graduate after 5 years. The 14% who don't graduate, there's a variety of reasons. They flunked out academically, or they've been expelled for violating university regulations, or the family has encountered some financial problem and they're not able to pay their fees, or there's some other family crisis that has caused them to drop out. And our job placement rate, we measure 6 months after national service. Have they got a job? Have they started their own business? Or they're in graduate school? 1 out of every 10 of our graduates has started a business. We want this to grow. We set a new goal for ourselves 7 years ago that this must grow to about 20%. So we want to see our graduates starting businesses and employing others. This is a good result, right? But we want to do better. We want to be more Pan-African. Our goal is to have 30% of our students be non-Ghanaian. Currently it's at 17%. So we know we have work to do. We want to have economic diversity. So currently 45% of our students are on scholarship. 25% pay nothing to come at all. 20% pay partial fees, and 55% pay the full fees. We want to be gender balanced. So that means 45% to 55% for either gender. So overall gender balance is 47%. In engineering is 40%, which is not quite in the 45%, right? The 50 plus or minus 5. But it's a very good result, and we know we have work to do to get to where we want to be. Now let me share some sort of the not good stuff. Okay? And it's really important for us to be honest with ourselves about just how well we're doing. So we have a KPI around campus safety. And the goal is that we want crime to be low and declining every year on our campus. And this is what the number, I'm waiting to see the 2018 to 2019 numbers, but we measure it in terms of absolute total number of cases, and then cases per 100 students is the orange line. But 2015, 2016, we had a spike of theft on our campus. But we're measuring it, so we know this is a problem. This is supposed to be an honor code school, right? Where it's we don't cheat in exams, but we steal. So, drops in 2016, 2017. There's a bit of an uptick in 2017, 2018. We're measuring it, and we share this with board members and everybody. Sexual harassment and sexual assault, right? We measure that too. And we started measuring that in 2017, so we should have started earlier. So 2017, 10% of our students reported having experienced harassment or assault. So sexual harassment or unwanted touching, right? And so, we started to do a lot of work on sort of educating students about consent and what constitutes consent and how people ought to behave. A year later, the number dropped to 4%. And this year, we've measured again. We'll have the results analyzed by August, and we'll see whether it's declining or increasing. Now, in the United States, this number is 20%, 20 to 25% on average in the US, on US campuses. So any sexual harassment, any sexual assault is one too many, right? We know that it's going to occur, but we want it to be very low and we want it to be declining every year. And we need to hold ourselves accountable to this. Now, I'm sharing all of this as a way of saying, look, I think really want to be educating future good citizens and leaders of our continent, then we should be willing to measure ourselves in this way and to rank ourselves in this way. These are some of the things that should be in a ranking system. Because a university where there's a lot of research happening that is unsafe physically for students is a problem. Because the people who are perpetrating those things, if you fast forward 20, 30 years, they're going to be leaders in our societies. And how are they going to behave? How are they going to behave when they hire people? Right? What priority are they going to give to safety and security in their countries? So these are just a few thoughts. Now we've also now recently added KPI on research. Our goal is we're not going to be a research-one institution. We want to be 75% teaching, 25% research. It's a decision that we've made for ourselves, and we expect that if there's a ranking that is looking at only research, we're not going to do very well with that, and we're okay with that. If there's a ranking that's measuring other things, we're going to do better on those things, and we're okay with that too. But I just wanted to start this morning with a few thoughts. The problem before us is a major one. We're educating people today for a world where the pressure on all our systems is going to be twice what it is today. That's a world we're educating our students for. We're educating students for a world where we don't really know what the technology is going to look like 30 years from now, except we know it's going to be profoundly radically different from today. If the promise of artificial intelligence is realized, we're educating people in a world where they're intelligent machines making decisions. I'll give you an example. Alibaba, which is the big e-commerce company in China, has a product called Ali Credit. They give credit to loans. Now, Alibaba used to have a big army of finance people who reviewed loan applications and did the analysis and made the decisions. Today, Ali Credit, the decisions are made by an AI. Guess how long it takes for that AI to make decisions? Any guesses? You send in a loan application, how long does it take before a yes or no decision has been made?
A day.
What?
A day.
A day? Okay. 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, after you press submit, a yes or no decision has been made, and there's money in your bank account or not. So 3 minutes, not only has a decision been made, but the money has been delivered. Now think about the jobs that's replacing. These are not menial jobs. These are people who've been highly trained in accounting and finance, right? That are making these decisions. They're being replaced by a machine. That's the world that we're educating our students for, right? So it's a really big challenge. I'm optimistic. I think that there's going to be even more jobs for humans in that world. I do. I do. The countries with the most robots per capita today also have the lowest unemployment rate. The United States used to be a time where 90% plus of its population were involved in agriculture. Today, it's something like 1 or 2% involved in agriculture, and they produce more than enough food for the United States. They're the biggest agricultural exporter in the world. So then, those 90% that lost their jobs in agriculture are not busy doing other things. They're like building the AIs. Right? So, if we do our jobs right, this is all going to be actually good for everyone. If we do our jobs wrong, then we've got a problem. So, I have 0 seconds left. So, I'm going to stop now.
Thanks, Patrick. And I think I made everyone aware of this when I started. So another round of applause. Alright, so last year we had a guest who came to Ashesi. They were organizing an education conference in Accra. And they had heard a similar presentation about Ashesi. They had done the tour, and they said, I had come here thinking that we could have Ashesi come join the conference. But this place is too perfect. And so I think when you come, you will intimidate the other institutions who are participating. I'm going to invite Patrick to come back up and speak a little bit about what are some of the challenges that Ashesi is grappling with that we've not been able to solve yet. So if you come back, come join me, because when people listen to this, for those of you in the room, they'll walk away thinking, this place is too perfect. How would you respond to that? What are some of the challenges that Ashesi is grappling with?
What do you mean? We have problems?
What are some of the things that we've not been able to solve?
Look, I think that just about everything we do has been difficult. I wouldn't say we haven't solved this problem yet. We're sort of in process. But finding faculty is not easy, right? Especially in computer science, engineering, this is something that we're constantly grappling with. So this is something that we need to work on. Another thing that's sort of on my mind a lot is, yes, on the one hand, Ashesi is doing a lot of good things. We've raised money for scholarships and so on. But for those who have to pay for freight, it's a lot of money for Ghana's economy, right? So how do we keep costs in check is something that I'm concerned about. We have 3, I would say, broad categories of students. We have students whose families can pay the full freight, people who are from sort of more lower middle income, working income families, and students who are severe poverty, I would say. When I go to raise money for scholarships, donors are more interested in people from severe poverty than people from the striving class. So they can pay some of their fees, but not all of it. Finding money for partial scholarships is not so easy. The students who fall out for financial reasons tend to be in that category for us. So there's this dynamic that we have to struggle with and manage very, very carefully. Look, the other thing that I haven't figured out is how to take a break. So I'm going to take a break next year. But no, it's a problem. I got really tired last year, and I'm kind of in recovery mode. Thanks for the charger. That really helped. But yeah, so those are some of the things. And fundraising, as you know, is a very difficult thing, and it's an ongoing thing. So we're always, I never feel like we have enough funds for what we need to do. There's a lot of growth that we would like to implement. It all requires money. So yeah, those are some of the difficulties.
Thank you, Patrick. And don't forget, so we have all these people in the room. We have people from Uganda, from Kenya, from Nigeria, we have the Ministry of Education, GES. Why is it important? Why is all this important? Why do we need to move towards this model where all these different institutions and organizations need to collaborate?
So I used an example yesterday with the leaders of universities saying that if you think about, a tree that survives a storm, what does it look like? The trees that are in clusters and groves are more likely to survive than the ones that are standing by themselves. The trees that have strong roots, right? And for us, roots are your values, the institutional culture, they're more likely to survive. And so this collaboration is about making sure we have a grove of trees, and we're not all individually trying to stand against a storm. We're going to have a much stronger ecosystem if we collaborate with each other than if we're just all doing things independently. There's a lot that we can learn from each other at all levels of our organizations. The leadership, the faculty, the administration, the students, we can all learn from each other. And it's really important, given the challenges before us, that we're not each trying to do it alone. So that's why we launched this education collaborative.
Thank you. All right, round of applause.